Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today. I'm Emily Brown, Associate Vice President of Marketing and Brand Strategy for MCI USA, and I'm very excited to dive into our session today on the very important topic of sustainability. Before we get going, I have just some quick housekeeping. We are recording this webinar and we'll post the recording on our social media pages as well as our website by early next week. So please look for that and feel free to share the recording with your colleagues and network. We know sustainability is a vital topic not only for our business practices, but also for our world in general. So we want you to share it as freely as possible. Additionally, we will be accepting questions for our presenters. So please use the LinkedIn chat to post your questions and additional comments throughout the session. And lastly, we're going to have a couple polls that we'll be posting on our LinkedIn wall throughout the presentation. So I recommend that you open a new tab, find our company page, which I'll put the link in the chat so you can easily find that. And when it comes to the polls, you're going to want to switch to our company page, answer on there, and then come back to the tab with the live presentation. We definitely want as much participation as possible. So get ready and we'll have those ready whenever the polls come up. So with that, as I said, today's topic is sustainability, and we have some excellent speakers lined up from both the US and around the world to speak on this topic. First up is Erica Fawer, who will be speaking on the topic from the aspect of how we at MCI prioritize sustainability. We'll then hear from my colleagues Caroline Dubreucq and Patricia Aguilar, who will share real-world examples and tips for how you can integrate sustainability into your event and organizational practices. So without further ado, Erica, please kick us off.
Thank you very much, Emily, for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. So our purpose at MCI is to bring people together and create a positive impact in our world. And we do this by using our skills, voice, and relationship. And always keeping in mind, our responsibility to giving back to the communities, protecting our planet, reinforcing the value of human connection, and this for our talents, our clients, and our communities. So maybe just a few information on MCI. So MCI is a global engagement and marketing agency, part of MCI Group. We are present in 31 countries. Across all our brands, we have a little over 1,500 employees. In average, we run 4,500 projects a year, and we have a portfolio of about 1,200 clients. From just sharing a few figures on our positive impact with our sustainability program. So this is the premiere. You're getting to see these figures as the first persons. We are working on our sustainability report, which will be launched at the end of the month. So you'll see much more highlights on everything we do. And just focusing a little bit on our approach. So we are a signatory of the United Nations Global Compact Agreement. We signed that agreement in 2007, and we were the first communication and event agency to sign that agreement. We have embedded the UN principles and the Sustainable Development Goals into our strategy and the way we do our business. So this really helps us, to keep our focus and our goals. We are also a founding member of the Destination Sustainable Movement, which is a benchmarking and performance improvement program for destinations. We are also part of the task force for the net zero carbon events, which is an industry initiative to address climate change. The visual, our commitment, I just wanted to share that visual with you. I'm not going to take you through all the steps. It's quite a lot, but it's just to show you that we have a holistic approach on how we cover all aspects of sustainability. So it's not only about environmental issues, but also the whole social aspect. So within MCI and for our employees, with our diverse and inclusive values, it's about how protecting our people and our assets and how we create a culture of caring and responsibility. For the planet, it's by reducing where possible our carbon footprint and mitigating our unavoidable carbon emissions. For the community, you may have seen some of the figures on the other slides, but we have a very strong culture of giving back, raising money for charity, and especially using our skills for pro bono work. And also, we have robust business ethics, and we believe that our role is to raise awareness on sustainable innovations and solutions and to create responsible experiences for our clients. In 2020, we wanted to review a little bit our strategy, and so we did what we call a materiality assessment. So we also run a survey with all the different stakeholders, which were our employees, our clients, suppliers, and also some industry contacts, to try to define what matters to them and where we should focus on in the future. So with those results, we came up with 6 areas of focus. So protecting our people and assets, clearly, that's very important. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is also a topic that is very dear to our heart. We actually have a group task force consisting of different talents in the various offices, and they all, looking at solutions and training and producing campaigns to raise awareness on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. We've also launched our speaker program last year. And carbon footprint is also something this is what we're working on, aside from our report, is, with the new ways of working, people working remote, flexible work. So we need to look at how we can measure our carbon emissions from our own operations. So that's also a whole different topic for us to work on. Then responsible consumption and production, you'll hear more from my colleagues afterwards. And also communication, always important, to keep on having the conversation and raising awareness on anything to do with sustainability. And learning and development is still a very key important point for us. And as you will see, we always integrate the sustainable development goals in our approach in everything we do. Then sustainable experiences have a better outcome. So why are we saying that? So the first is to match the attendees' expectation. A large portion of the current or potential attendees of events are more social conscious and are looking to companies which are doing good. So really people expect brands to act now and take the leads and really improve also their practices all the way through also on their events. It's also about avoiding damage. It can very quickly, if you promote that you have a green approach or sustainable approach in your marketing collaterals, but nothing is happening on your events, could be also very damaging for your brand. Then it's also about compliance. There are new laws and regulations being implemented, and a lot around sustainability or climate or social. So, bear in mind that if you don't follow those laws, could be financial penalties for you. Also, having eco-efficient practices can save money. And then Caroline and Patricia will, through real events, really demonstrate how we can better manage our waste, have good F&B planning, or design material that can be reused or recycled. It's also an opportunity to create increase revenue or create revenue. You could be attracting new clients, new exhibitors, or maybe even new sponsors because you're offering ideas and solutions that they like and that they want to be part of. Then it's also, good practices can attract new attendees and new staff. Integrating sustainability into your project can set you, apart from your competition. And also, we all know employees are looking up to companies that are doing good. So you could attract or retain your employees. And least for me, it's and not least, sorry, is for me it's about showing leadership, and I think it's an opportunity also if you don't do anything at the moment to show the example to your industry. Then if you, and I think we have some attendees who are from associations, so just a few tips, because you are in the unique position also to walk the talk. So you have a direct impact on your operations and business practices. And these are just a few tips on the basic things like recycling in your offices or premises, responsible purchasing, fundraising also, and I think it's also the feel good part of the sustainability, or even organizing volunteers program during your events or your activations. And then also unique position, then it's an indirect impact, but by talking to your members and motivating them to have more a better approach to sustainability. So we've listed 8 tips. I'm not again going to take you through all of them because unfortunately we don't have time. And I see the clock ticking, and if you let me, I could speak for hours. So I'll just try to focus a little bit. So pick just a few, like best practices and quality assurance. So you develop specific certification programs, so where you could include sustainability and push your industry. Also, anything to do around code of conducts. Also key documents that you are producing for your association. And it's also very much about advocacy and public affairs. So, your trusted advisors, you can be the collective voice of the association to push or to influence government, hopefully, or policy makers on some of the sustainability topics. So if you'd like to know more about how, as an association, you could integrate more sustainability into your practices, then I encourage you to look at our Fast by MCI program, which is a program to help associations to thrive in this new world. Then if we look at how to create responsible experiences, and we focus more on the in-person approach, of course, there's a lot that you can do for online digital experiences, but in person, this is where there's quite a high impact in terms of carbon emission. So over the years, we have constantly proven that by embedding sustainability thinking, you can improve the efficiency, the quality, the experience of the attendees, and accelerate also innovation. And we really strongly believe that sustainability should be integrated from the get-go. So we try to have the conversation with the client, to understand, what's their approach in terms of sustainability, or maybe they have some ambitions and goals and need assistance. We also like to challenge how things are done, avoiding the famous just copy paste your event from one to the other. And it's also about rethinking the event. Now, after the pandemic, we all learn to run digital events. So we know it's possible. So it's always to look at, what the purpose of the event and the reach you want to have. So is it best to do an online event, or in-person event, or maybe an hybrid or combination, or potentially even consider a smaller main event with satellite events. So just think, okay, do everybody need to travel to the event, and these kind of things. So then we look also, or we break down the event, I would say, in 8 areas, from the destination all the way to the event production. And we look at the budget, where do we have the highest spending? Because this is most likely where you may have the highest carbon footprint, but also where it's worth your time to look at how you can integrate sustainability into your event. So that would be my recommendation. Look at where are you spending your money, focus on that part. And on that, I will hand over to my colleague Caroline, who's going to take you through ITS World Congress. So really concretely what they have done for their client over the years.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk about special cases, the ITS World Congress. So that was an event which happened last year in October 2021. I will explain you in a nutshell, like the size of the event. So that was 13,000 participants attending the event, an exhibition floor of 25 square meters, more than 200 sessions. We had some demonstration and technical visits within the city. So that was pretty big. And we really see a lot of room to implement sustainability into the full concept and the full reflection of the Congress. So where do we start? Where do we start the conversation? And that was a bit mentioned by Xavier earlier, but there is different access where the conversation and this discussion should happen. Of course, it has to happen with the client. This is really an actual topic which cannot be ignored. This is on their agenda also at their industry or association level. I think today everyone is concerned, everyone feel responsible, and you shouldn't be shy. So I will say that the first advice is really something we need to put on the table easily, and clients usually are quite open-minded and happy to listen and to try to implement. Some are really involved and maybe deeply involved, and they really want to go as far as they can for sustainability. Some will say, why not? And you will see there is plenty of little tips or steps you can do without having like a full big sustainability 100%, 200% concept. Then the second conversation should be with your team and your talents involved into the project, because you are not alone and everyone need to consider this approach for every items and every task they're implementing, because this will help them to choose the right product, to select the right partners, or to implement and be creative also in the way how they are making the different things and the different tasks, because you need to remind them that sustainability is one of the important items. So it's really important that you engage them. Then, of course, there is also conversation and discussion to have with the sponsor and the partners. So that's true already for the sales approach. To give an example, for the ITS World Congress, we had like a very big sponsor who may have been sponsor of the events, but maybe not as far as they have been, because we were integrating a lot of sustainability action into the Congress, and that was one of their main priority. And I think like the big corporate company is one of the top priority they have. So this can bring, let's say, business, revenue, income, and at the end, if you may have additional cost, you may bring more revenue by attracting the appropriate sponsors and partners. And you have also the communication with them just to mention and highlight some of the key messages they need to consider for the preparation, what they need to implement, what they need to try to avoid. So you give some of the guidance into the manuals during your webinar in preparation of the Congress. Then, of course, there is a conversation with your participants. So as Erika mentioned, this question of brand, is great to implement that, but you need to also kind of show off. You need to mention it, and you need to communicate it towards our partners, but also towards delegates, so you can stimulate them into making some small action for that Congress. And most of our Congress now we implement a page where they can select, do you want to compensate your carbon footprint? Or, honestly, it doesn't cost anything. You just have to select a project with some organization. We work with CO2 Logic here in Brussels, and they have project you can support, and participants decide to compensate their carbon footprint or not. But on your side, it doesn't cost really anything. It's just a little bit of time to implement that and select and have an agreement on the project together with the client. And then, of course, last and not least, it's a communication with the suppliers and the product to make a good product selection. So ideally, when you have the choice, let's put that as one of the criteria for the selection of your suppliers. And if you do not have the choice, and because there is some suppliers which are mandatory and you have to work with due to the venue constraint, there is always some rules or advice you can ask your supplier to implement. So same is always question of communication, and you need to put that on the topics to be discussed with your suppliers. One item to not forget also, it's about the content part. So for the ITS Congress, so is Intelligence Transportation System. Of course, we were in the transportation topics. So that was ideal to talk about sustainability, because this is what we are meaning with all the mobility solution. That was one of the major topic of the Congress. So there is also like some logics and some sense behind all the content and the presentation which were presented during the Congress. What has been offered also, it's a huge sustainable transportation offers, which were offered to a participant, to a sponsor. So, and again, we had this Congress on mobility, but for every face-to-face event and physical event you go in a destination together with the Convention Bureau. Maybe you need to understand like what are the existing solutions in place at your destination. And every city, every country is implementing more and more sustainable mobility solution. So it's a question of gathering the right information and communicate them to your participant and stimulate them into using that. For that Congress, on top of that, we had some partnership and sponsorship from this solution due to the topic of that Congress. But otherwise, is really collecting the information and communicate it towards your participants. Then here, let me share a few tips, easy to implement, which doesn't cost anything, because that was one of the main issue you had, which was mentioned earlier this morning. That was mentioned at the time, they were missing time, but you will see that it can be quickly implemented. So you know certainly the rules of the 5 R's. So first, you refuse. Refuse means you do not produce, you do not make something. So it means that you save money. So again, you do not spend money, you save money. And here an example is that for the ITS, we decided not putting carpeting because the booths were already kind of huge, nice, and a lot of content to see. We say, okay, let's focus on the booth construction and forget about the carpeting. We save a lot of cost. Despite the use to the whole printed version product, we came back to the client saying, okay, we are after the COVID, people change their spirit, their mindset, that's the time to turn into digital format. That was super well accepted. We refuse any disposable equipment, so we only use the China equipment for the catering. Of course, there is additional cost for the China equipment, but that could have been covered by some other area where we didn't spend money. Then to reduce as much as you can, to order the right quantity. We limited the branding just to focus really on the signage which was needed. I will go deeper into the waste further. Then to reuse, because we had some area where carpeting was really needed for soundproof, for rendering, but we use carpeting reusable with the tiles carpeting. And then recycling as much as you can. Some banners were reused to produce bags, and to give and to produce gifts after the Congress. I would like to highlight one item because after the transportation, food represents one of the second highest impact on carbon footprint from an event. So it's really important that you select, let's say, the right caterer, but you have also, even if they are not involved with any certification or whatsoever, that you order the right amount. And how you can do that is to have a good overview of the registration, but also what will be the when your participant will attend. At the ITS World Congress, it was a 5-day Congress. We request when they plan to attend, so we could be more granular into the expected number on site. And of course, we always drop because you always have less participants. So we reduce really like the waste, make the proper selection, be local, seasonable. And for that event, that was the first one where we didn't go 100% veggie, but that will be a plan maybe for the next time that saves cost. And by ordering the right amount, we also save a lot of cost. Having a responsible event is also supporting a charity support we presented earlier and compensate carbon footprint. So that is quite easy and doesn't cost anything. You can work with volunteers for some location like cloakroom. Instead of hostesses, you work with volunteer from an association and you financially support this association. So it's double advantage. They're happy, they get money from you, and for you at the end, you make a good action. So being socially responsible. And then we deliver also business ethically by involving the younger generation with a full startup concept area, and working usually most with the local owned businesses. So in a nutshell, we try to limit our impact on a social, environmental, economical perspective. Sustainability was really considered for every decision taken. We try to reduce the waste. We offer a wide range of mobility solutions, and we also reduce expenses to really focus on the must and avoid sometimes the nice.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Very inspiring. And I think, again, it's this whole approach of making sure that you've got all the stakeholders on board.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's a great honor to be here speaking on this topic that is very close to my heart. And as Erica said, by having a sustainable approach, your company can definitely attract and retain employees. And that would be me, because one of the reasons I joined MCI was because one of their pillars was sustainability. So I'm going to talk about food. And as Erica mentioned, that is one of the largest areas of impact in the event industry, and also because it's very tangible. Sometimes when we talk about travel impact and carbon emissions, that's a little bit subjective, but food, we can actually see it being thrown out and just wasted, and it's a bit painful to watch. In my particular experience working in catering, I have witnessed perfectly untouched food just going straight to the dumpster. So in that sense, I wanted to bring to everyone's awareness the Good Samaritan Act for food donations. And this is a law that it's a federal law, I believe, and it provides limited liability protection for people that make good faith donations of food and grocery products to nonprofits that feed the hungry. And not everyone is aware of this act. Actually, I think there's very little awareness about it. And it basically, for example, I had an experience just recently. I was the on-site planner, and it was a symposium that we were forecasting for around 250 people, open invitation. We guaranteed food for 200, and guess what? Only 25 people showed up. So I approached the server just to ask what's going to happen with all this food. And she said, it's just going to get thrown out. And I asked why they didn't work with, why didn't donate it? And they said that the hotel had been subject to lawsuits in the past, and they just completely abandoned that approach. So this is something that we can definitely bring towards the venue and say, hey, there's a law that protects you for if you want to donate this food. And actually, if Emily or Kendall is going to drop a link in the chat, it's a very easy 1, 2, 3 process of how to set up this food recovery procedure with the venue. And one of those steps is that when you inquire and you contact your planner, you request that the food leftover is set up for donation or food recovery, and you provide a copy of the Good Samaritan Act, which will also be dropped in the chat link for your review. So next slide, please. So you as a planner have the responsibility to connect with your nearest food bank or your nearest homeless shelter and arrange the pickup of that food. I also have a personal experience. I had a group of about 50 people that were due to arrive one evening, and they wanted to set up 50 lunch boxes for them to just grab and go to their room, but the flight was canceled and they arrived the next day. So what are we going to do with all those sandwiches for dinner? I quickly located a close homeless shelter, and they were very happy to pick up that leftover food. Or it can be as large scale as, for example, I had also the privilege of working the South Beach Wine and Food Festival here in Miami. I want to say it's one of the largest food festivals in the US. And I was a grad student at Fuller International University that partners with that event. And they also partner with Feeding South Florida, and currently with the Miami Rescue Mission. And each year they're able to save around 20 to 25,000 pounds of food, beverage, and supplies. And that has a great impact also with community outreach. It helps with food insecurity of the local population. So it definitely also plays to the feel good that do good feeling that Erica mentioned. Okay, so next slide, please. And here's just an example of a menu, and to compare between different items that you choose when setting up your menu with your planner. New York, as you can see, the New York strip has it mentions how much water each of these menu items requires and how much land use and how much carbon emissions it produces. So if you look at the New York strip steak, for example, it requires 270 gallons of water to be produced versus I would say a really good option for a dinner, a creamy garlic pasta with roasted tomatoes that only requires 17 gallons. So just to be mindful when you're selecting those food menus for your attendees. And the graphic right next to it is also, a comparison of the carbon dioxide equivalent produced per 1 kilogram of food. So of course, all the animal proteins are very high on that scale, and all the vegetable proteins are, the lowest and greenest. And of course, we're not suggesting that you go completely vegan or vegetarian, but start small, a progressive approach, maybe like in the ITS event, go 70% vegetarian, or maybe like 2 out of 3 options will be vegetarian, and that will definitely, definitely help offset that carbon emission from that event. And next slide, please. Okay, now I'm interested in hearing about everyone's experience, our viewers and our panel. We did post those questions in the poll. So Emily, let's go to the first question and see if we have some results.
Sure. So I'm actually going to look it up on my phone because we're just having lots of technology issues today. But yeah, so the first question, Kendall, if you go to the next slide, the first question is around Oh, yes. So, how challenging is it for your team to implement sustainable practices in your events? So, if you have the MCI company page open in a new tab, if you go to that page and then scroll down, you'll see this poll posted and you can participate. Is it somewhat challenging, extremely challenging, easy, extremely? And while you're taking a couple seconds to respond to the poll, I'd like to hear from Erica and Patricia what your experience has been as you've been attempting to implement some of these more sustainable practices. Where would you vote on this poll?
Well, in my personal experience, it has been somewhat challenging, specifically because we're in the USA market, and here, as opposed to Europe, for example, that they're more geared towards sustainability. The US tends to have like a culture of consumerism and, serve large portions. Everything is extra, everything is big. So sometimes it's not really in the corporate client's priorities to focus on being sustainable. So that is where we come in as, sustainability focused planners, and we present options that are greener or advise them on how to reduce waste. Like Erica mentioned, guaranteeing less people for buffets, selecting greener venues if we have the option, refusing some nice to have, and all of that translates also in cutting costs, which I'm sure will lean them towards those options. How about you, Erica?
Well, it's a bit different because it's it's like close to 15 years that we're working on sustainability. So, but I think if I try to look back, for me, I think the challenge was typically like around food. If a restaurant you would ask a vegetarian menu, you would get a salad or some steamed vegetable. And so nowadays, I mean, you have a plethora of options. So I think really the whole hospitality and the food industry, the restaurant, they here, at least in Europe, that you got options. So for me, it's always, I have the conversation with the supplier. I ask them what they do, and they have loads of ideas. So it's taking their ideas and then how you can integrate them into the event. So it's, for me, it's always look at find the right supplier. So whenever possible, and start small. Don't try to take everything on board. It's not possible. Just do something you're comfortable, and then you move on.
Definitely. That's start with put one foot forward and then let the other one follow.
And then we're so glad in the US that we have our European colleagues to look up to and to help guide us in these conversations too, because Europe is further ahead, I think, in the sustainability practices. So for votes, we're looking at it. Most people are somewhat challenging and some are extremely challenging. So it sounds like this is definitely a relevant topic.
Definitely. Hopefully some of our tips will help make a little bit easier.
Yes, for sure.
So I think we are ready to go to the next question or poll. I would like to see who presents the biggest pushback on implementing these practices. So would it be your clients? If you're a client, would it be your own internal stakeholders? Would it be the venues that you work with? Or would it be your attendees that are, maybe a little bit high maintenance and really don't care about sustainability, but more about, the luxury of the experience? In my particular experience, it's been the venues, because as I mentioned, for food recovery, they've been very, wary of lawsuits. But in this case, I would definitely advise, if you can inquire in advance, see what their policies are. If they don't want to work with you, see if you can choose another one, if that's an option. But definitely just plan ahead and make that a topic of conversation from the get-go. How about Erica?
So for me, it's none of the above. No, it's a mix, I would say. So the pushback is, I think it's we've been working on sustainability for many years and saying, the clients will ask us, and we didn't get the request from the client. So we're thinking, okay, but they don't care and things like that. So now we really feel there's this movement of more clients, more companies wanting to integrate sustainability, but sometimes it's still about it's stays at the procurement level. It's a procurement level who sends us a long list of questions and ticking the box to make sure we're the right partner to work for them. But then it's harder to have the discussion with the actual team and get them on board. And that's I think what they did very well on the ITS Congress, because they really were able to kind of always bringing back the clients to what are their ambitions, what are their KPIs, and okay, and sometimes you have to make choices, but always make them aware, okay, fine, we can do this, but this would be the impact. So it's a mixed feeling. So
looks like from the poll we're having a kind of half and half between clients and internal stakeholders. So I know personally, doing marketing for MCI USA, we want to be sustainable in everything we do, and we have to watch cost. So I think that would probably fall under internal stakeholders who oversee the budget, and just looking for suppliers that offer options that are not cost prohibitive. But they're definitely out there, and I think to both of your all's point about cost savings when it comes to being sustainable, that's definitely an area of value that we can all learn from.
Yeah, and I think also when it comes to attendees was not one of the options they suggested, but I think if you do have that kind of high level attendee that is more interested in the experience than any cost saving, you could also play on the the community outreach part of it. It's always good to the charity option and get that also good PR from it, since you're helping the community. So that is definitely something that people would like to get involved with. So just another option. All right, and then last but not least, I also would like to ask the audience, what area would you like events to focus more on improving their sustainability approach? Would it be material sourcing or waste, reducing that waste from materials? Would it be food sourcing, production, or food waste? Would it be travel impact on carbon emissions? Or would it be, seeing more community outreach for the events that you work with? And let's see, for me, as you know, I already spoke about the food waste, but in terms of travel, I know the pandemic has had a silver lining that a lot of events have either gone virtual or hybrid, which that already reduces a big portion of the carbon emission impact. And also, I think community outreach would be great too. There's always so many opportunities to have a positive impact on the location that you're having the event. So that for me would be my feedback. How about you, Erica or Emily?
So yeah, I would actually go, so because it's based on the readings and the discussion we had with the Net Zero Carbon Events Initiative, and it's just looking at where we have the highest impact, and so it's anything to do around the food, the waste, the material sourcing. So this is where, I mean, if we want to get things moving, I think this is where we should focus on and get everybody on board.
Absolutely.
And oh, sorry.
No. I was just going to add that our digital era that we're living in will also play towards being greener. Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah. Well, from a marketing perspective, I think one of the biggest things we think about when we're going to events, exhibiting or sponsoring is what kind of swag can we give out? And I just cringe when I see those photos of plastic, universes that are in the ocean, and just all the amount of waste that, you know, people leave an event with stuff that they may never use. And so trying to develop some more environmentally friendly giveaways and ways to promote our brand is definitely something that I think about a lot.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right. So that was our last question for the poll. We can move on to the next slide. And Erica, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe some takeaways from this session. So it's begin by addressing issues that are relevant to your business. And again, ITS is an excellent example where, you know, they're transportation association. So they focus also on the whole transportation approach. So they are, you know, sustainability does a lot, and it's not possible to do everything. So I think it helps if it's relevant to your industry or to your business. And also what I mentioned before is concentrate on the issues that you can control. And I think like the airlines, yes, okay, we all wish that, you know, we would have like electrical planes or something like that. But I mean, we industry, we know people will need to travel. So hopefully the airline industry will work and have more sustainable planes in the future. But then, yeah, like we said, look at the food, look at the waste, and these kind of things. So focus on those because you have the control on those.
Great. And you also want to be proactive and make it part of your RFP. So like I mentioned before, just make it a topic of conversation from the get-go. Liaise with your venues and your clients and try to bring those green topics to the spotlight, I would say. And last but not least, make sure that your team is fully engaged with the goal and the green objective, and that they understand the why. If you know, being environmentally friendly is not powerful enough to swing them that way, then definitely just present cost savings and just do whatever it takes to just make your event greener. So in conclusion, you have the power to change the world, so use it to make a difference.